Hi friends, welcome to this practice I call deep rest. This is a restorative practice, and the intention is for you to begin to completely unravel, let go of your day, release anything built up in your body or your mind. In order to do this, let's make sure that we can find ourselves into positions of extreme comfort. And so to do that, I really recommend that you're dressed in something that feels easy to move in, warm enough, even snuggly. Consider having some things around you to make sure that you can put your body in its optimal shape. So I highly recommend having a small blanket or two, or even a thicker comforter type blanket that you could roll into the shape of a tube to use as a substitution for a yoga bolster. You could also use firmer cushions, say from your couch, to form a bolster of your own. They're wonderful things to own, so maybe you could put it on a birthday wish list. And then either yoga blocks or something that can substitute as a yoga block. This is less important for today's practice, but good substitutes can be Tupperware containers or big thick books. Those are things that we can have nearby that might just help ease the shapes that we're going to put our body in. When you're ready, we're going to find a shape of comfort. So if you're happy to be seated, that's a wonderful shape to join me in, or choose any shape that makes sense to you, lying back or hanging out on your side for a couple of moments that we can draw into ourselves, find some stillness, find our breath. Find your shape. Close your eyes. Take an audible exhale so we can begin. We work to arrive with patience and honesty. And there's no expectation of you as you land here. So just take a couple of moments and observe what it's like to be here in this moment, in your body. And begin to feel out the movement of your breath without needing to do anything special to it, without changing or fixing the breath in any way. A lot of times as we start to draw our attention onto the layer of the breath begins to change and form and shape all on its own. So if you notice this to be true for you, and if you find any places that the breath is starting to deepen, elongate, or smooth out, allow that process to unfold naturally in a way that feels really good for you. Noticing and inviting the full scope of the inhale. Accepting the release of the full exhale. The movement of the breath is the most natural thing for our body. We breathe thousands and thousands of breaths every day. And so since we're paying attention to how it is that that breath is moving, let's give it a permission to be complete, to be full for just a moment more here. And before we dive toward the first pose of the practice, I would invite you to layer a hand up over your heart and one lower onto your belly. And just taking a moment to feel your breath and maybe even feel your heart rate under your hand. As we do so, we take a moment to really connect to this idea of self-care, of seeing the incredible benefit to slowing down and taking rest. In a world that seems to be quite obsessed with how busy we can be, I think it takes a huge amount of courage and reverence to acknowledge how important it is to allow ourselves to rest body, mind, and spirit. Know this to be true as we take one more full body breath here. A slow exhale to let it go. Release your hands slowly down to your sides. And however it makes sense to you in your body in this moment, we're going to come all the way over onto our belly. And so you can welcome yourself to place something onto the mat. I'm going to decide to layer my blanket onto the mat to a place that I can lay my hips onto the blanket. And then you can choose to lay a cheek or a forehead. I'm going to stack my hands so I can allow my forehead to rest onto the back of stacked hands. As you get here, please make sure that you start to lay your body toward comfort. So it might feel really nice to kick the feet slightly wide to make sure that you have the ability to soften through the front of the hips and the pelvis. There's nothing particularly complicated about the shape that we're taking here. So make sure that it's one that you can find your way into comfort. And then when you do find that comfortable position, rest yourself toward simple stillness. Bring your attention back to the fullness of your breath. Watch the simple rise and fall of your body, inflating slightly from the mat as you breathe in, sinking back into the support of the mat as you breathe out. We'll be here bathed by this simple cycle. Full body breath, releasing every muscle, indulging in the simple rest that this shape is for just a minute and some more. Some of us have a great tendency to resist the notion of rest. We are hardwired to do and to think and to be constantly in action. And so my invitation to you for half a minute more is to really will each part of your body that tends to hold your effort to soften and get a little heavier. to breathe your breath fully out to the edges of your rib cage and inflating into your back body. Let's take 3 more breaths here. When you're ready to, ever so slightly, please lift your head. You're going to begin to turn so that you're lying onto your left cheek. And from here, we're not going to do anything too dramatic, but you're going to keep your left leg long down the mat behind you. And you're going to pull your right knee out toward the right side. So I'm hoping from the camera angle that we have, you can see this clearly. But essentially, we're going to have our right toes facing the right. We're going to allow our body to rest into a place where the right hip has soft opening. So turning our cheek to rest, feeling a soft stretch into the inner right thigh. And again, you could always place a blanket under your right knee, your inner thigh, your ankle. If it felt like you were pulling the knee too far away from yourself, you could tuck it in closer, tuck the foot closer to the inner thigh, any place that you feel like it is an appropriate opening for you. And then again, work to rest your body back toward the mat. Rest your head, rest your shoulders. Rest the movement of the breath as you allow it to still move seamlessly in and out. This isn't a place where we have to feel like we need to do it perfectly and do it with the utmost amount of effort. This is the most natural thing that your body does, breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. Enjoy this minute and some here. Welcome the deep release of every muscle with every released exhale. Take a little scan of the culprit places of your body. Notice if there's any unnecessary strength gathering in your hands or your tongue, the sockets of your eyes or your lips. For some of us, habituated squeezing into the thighs or the glutes or the belly. Soften all these places for 3 more big breaths. The transition to the other side is something that I welcome you to do slowly and in your own time, straightening the right leg behind you, changing so you're lying on the right cheek, and bringing the left knee out toward the left side when you're ready. As you get onto the second side with the second shape of the hip, of the leg, of the knee, take time to make sure that it's sustainable, that you can hold on to it. Sometimes the initial shape that we put ourselves in isn't necessarily the paramount ideal shape. You can always put something in the form of a pillow beneath your cheek or your head. You can use support on your inner thigh or your ankle. When you're ready to allow your body to rest, do it with reverence. The rest is such a deeply important thing for our bodies and our minds to refreshen and recalibrate, to integrate all of the information and energy that we're consistently surrounded by. Soften into this side the same way that you did in the first side. Be bathed by your simple breath. Be held by this simple shape. And what many of us find as we relax into some of these inviting restorative poses is that some of them indeed welcome us so deeply that our mind begins to comfortably drift off. Regardless if this has been the side of a pose that you've had to work on the relaxation, or you have easily fallen into the relaxation, make sure your attention is drawn back to the full scope of your breath, and let's take our last 3 here. Again, I'm going to invite you to move when you're ready, with no need to speed ourselves up or slow ourselves down. When you're ready to go, we're going to shift from this space and come back to the form of a releasing and supported child's pose. Don't feel rushed. When you're ready, adjust your head back to neutral and your leg back behind you, and we'll transition through an all-fours position. As you come up onto your hands and your knees, you could welcome yourself to simply part your knees wide and crawl down into a child's pose without the necessity of props. Since I have a bolster with me today, I'm going to elect to use it. You could do the same if you have one available to you. I'm going to bring my bolster out in front of me, fold my forearms in front of me, and bring my forehead to come to rest. You could always bring your bolster between your inner thighs, beneath your chest and your belly, turning a cheek toward whatever direction is most comfortable for your neck, and allow that to be an added support for you too. If child's pose is one that is naturally comfortable, you could welcome yourself just to lay your head or your cheek toward the floor. You might even find that this is a posture that you have a little bit of difficulty in because you find pressure in your knees or your hips. So know that the hips don't have to sink back toward the heels very far. In some cases, we even keep the hips stacked up quite high over the knees. You can even take a pillow or a rolled blanket behind the back of the knees so that the thigh bone has something to come down and connect to, and it won't tend to push with so much pressure back toward the heels. In any case, when you find a shape that works for you, please close your eyes. Recalibrate to the movement of your breath. Invite every exhale to release unnecessary layers of tension from your body and unnecessary layers of tension from your mind, conscious or unconscious. Please notice if your mind has run off to be in other places. Know it's the most natural thing in the world if it has. We're humans and hardwired to be time traveling around into the future and into the past. Come back into the rest of this moment. Feel the release of each place of your body, each of the muscles that hold each of the places of your body. Indulge in the last number of breaths here. Slower than you'd like to.
Use your hands as a support and come all the way back up through a seat.
When you get to a seated place, we won't be staying long. If you had a bolster or a cushion, I would invite you to put it between your legs. And we're gonna find space on our mat that we have room to come and lie all the way down. From the reclined space on your back body, please open your arms wide to the floor in the shape of a capital T. Use your feet to help you guide your hips, and we're going to move them slightly off to the right side of the mat so both our knees can fall to the left. In doing so, I would love whatever it is that you've placed between your knees and your shins to be of a support to you. Some of us will even like to take an extra blanket or one of the yoga blocks if you have one and slide it in under your lower knee, your left knee. Know that you can move the prop between your legs, between your thighs and your shins and your knees around to a place that it's comfortable to you. And if for any reason it is completely uncomfortable to you to have this there, know you can move it out of the way and join me in just a simple twist of your choice. Release your head and your shoulders, how that makes the most sense to you. Soften your hands, the muscles that hold your jaw and your molars. Release any effort that might be hiding in your tongue. Letting eyes sink comfortably, and the skin that holds the eyes and the lips to get smooth. And come back into that rinsing wave of your breath that waves through the body, drawing in with nourishing inhales and letting it fall away with completely releasing exhales. Inhale completely. Exhale fully. Like every pose so far, we'll rest for a couple of minutes here. Three more full body breaths here. inhale comes, lift slowly up with your knees. See if you can stay hugged with your prop between your knees. I like to use my feet to bring my hips back to center and then bringing them ever so softly to the right. Both knees, when you're ready, fall toward the right side. Maybe an adjustment is necessary again. And this will happen with either something beneath your lower knee or a readjustment of what's being held between your knees. Again, if it doesn't serve you to have something between the knees, let that go. Fall into the stillness of this shape when you're ready, and acknowledge that the idea of this deep rest is coming from a place of self. So there's no expectation of you to create a particular shape and achieve it. There's no prize other than the actual rest that we can glean from the posture. So if it feels in any way that you're straining to be here or that you're having to engage any muscles to be here, please find a way to soften and release those. You can really enjoy the feeling of melting into the support of your mat. Really feel completely bathed by the fluid movement of your breath. I believe there is power when we choose to rest. Not when we're forced to because we have brought ourselves right to the complete edge of sickness and burnout. Not that we need to feel guilty about falling to the very natural cycle of things, of pushing ourselves a little too far and burning the candle at both ends for a little too long. And naturally our bodies will send us that signal, send us that cue by becoming sick or becoming a little burnt out that we know we need to rest. If this is you, don't worry, you're human. You're in good company. I've been there time and again. But I do know that there is great power to claiming rest for myself before I end up in that territory too. And enjoying this side of this pose for a last couple of breaths here before we move on again. And when your inhale comes, use it to help lift your knees back up through center. And feel a calibration of your hips back under your shoulders. And if it's possible, you're going to use your hands to help release your prop and bring yourself up just for a moment of readjustment. Now, if you have something that could form as a bolster, it will be really helpful. I find in my experience before I had a yoga bolster was a knit blanket of some kind, so something that will have some density to it, or some form of a comforter, so something with a lot of batting in it, something that isn't too floppy. You can roll it up into a tube-like shape and put it behind you, because the idea is that we want something that we can allow our shoulders to rest off of the sides of. From here, we're going to turn ourselves so that the back of our hips find the bolster. And of course, if you're a person that you have tenderness in the low back, you could prop up the head end of this so there's not so much reclining. You can put something under your buns so that there's not so much scoop in the low back if that was something that was bothersome to you. Then we're going to lay ourselves back and let your hands fall to where they're comfortable, and let your legs fall in a way that they're comfortable. So if you're comfortable with legs bent, feet on the floor, that's great. I like mine straightened down the mat. You might even find that you like to cross yours like when we're seated. Or some people who are really happy with the feeling of an open shape to the inner edge of our groins and inner thighs and our hips. A diamond shape with the legs can feel good too. If you have extra props, you could even take the diamond shape and tuck props in under your thigh bones or your knees for extra support. When you find the release of your shape, we're going to allow ourselves to really melt over our bolster or our blanket, letting each shoulder fall away. Taking a scan from head to toe and toe all the way back to head, so each and every part is invited to participate in this deep rest. Keenly aware of the way that the breath comes in to fill us completely, and releasing fully to the bottom. You can ride the wave of this breath, really feeling its nourishing release for a couple minutes here. For some of us, this can be the most releasing pose of all. For others, it's one that takes a little bit of effort and concentration to will ourselves to relax into. Whatever is real for you here, please indulge in 3 last full body breaths before we move on. If legs are long, consider rebending till your feet find the floor. And softly, with as little effort as possible, find your way off your prop. We're going to take just one last shape. And I'm going to invite you, if it feels good in your body, to bring a pillow, a bolster, or rolled blanket under your knees. And only if it speaks to you and it serves you, I'm going to invite you to consider opening the blanket that you've gathered for yourself and cover yourself up. And we're going to lay ourselves down for our final pose, our Savasana. Hands can rest wherever they're comfortable when you get here. That might be off the body, or it might be rested onto your belly or your hips. Allow yourself to adjust to this final posture, the posture that in a way all the others were preparing ourselves for. The ultimate pose of relaxation, Savasana. Rest your tongue in your mouth. Rest the fingers of your hands. Rest the muscles of your shoulders and your belly and your glutes. Rest the way that the thoughts tend to leap in and out of this experience, to ones in the future and ones in the past. Know that everything has the invitation for a couple more moments to rest. The way you move from here will be highly dependent on where you are in your day. If you have tasks yet to come, maybe this is a pre-bed practice, or maybe it was necessary to recalibrate from the midst of your day before moving on to whatever it is that's next. If you have the ability to rest here a while longer, please do. And if this is the place that you transition off into whatever necessary activity might come next, I hope you can do it feeling a little recalibrated, a little reset. It was my great privilege to practice a practice of deep rest with you. I look forward to the opportunity to share more practices such as this in future days to come. And the light that burns within me recognizes so truly that amazing and radiant light that burns within you, the thing that makes us the same. From my heart to yours, namaste.